You chase reinvention every year, but end up the same weak shadow. 2026 demands death, not change. Kill the parasite inside or stay chained forever. You stand at the threshold of 2026, clutching faded resolutions from years past, each one a brittle leaf crumbling under scrutiny. Reinvention is not the gentle bloom they sell you. New habits layered over old flaws like makeup on a corpse. It is demolition, the deliberate shattering of your current frame, where comfort masquerades as progress and weakness hides behind excuses. This year demands more than adjustment. It requires the violent uprooting of illusions that have kept you stagnant, repositioning your gaze through a lens of unyielding truth where only the strong emerge intact. The old frame deceives with its softness. You see yourself as evolving, yet every January you recycle the same tired promises: eat better, read more, network harder. These are bandages on a festering wound, distractions from the core rot. Society peddles this myth of gradual change because it profits from your perpetual striving without a rival. Media, gurus, even your inner circle reinforce the lie. You're doing great, just keep going. But keeping going in circles is not motion, it is imprisonment. True reinvention begins with acknowledging the fraud. Your current self is not a rough draft to polish, but an enemy to overthrow. Shift the lens now, with surgical intent. Excise the delusion that time alone heals or elevates. 2026 is not another lap, it is a cull. The world accelerates. AI devours, jobs, economies fracture, alliances dissolve, leaving no room for the half-committed. View your life as a battlefield. Habits are fortifications, relationships are alliances, ambitions are territories. In this arena, gentle growth invites invasion. The elite do not tweak, they raise. They understand that weakness is not a phase but a parasite, feeding on your potential until only husks remain. To reposition, internalize the predator's calculus. Every unexamined comfort is a vulnerability, every hesitation a surrender. Envision your psyche as an ancient fortress, its walls eroded by years of compromise. Invisible sieges. Dopamine hits from scrolling, validation from the unworthy, guilt over unfinished goals have breached your defenses. Reinvention seals these cracks not with mortar but with fire, burning away the debris of who you thought you were. Adopt the tyrant's vision: cold, panoramic, merciless. Tyrants do not question their right to rule. They assert it, selecting allies with the precision of a blade. You are not here to adapt, you are here to conquer, transforming every setback into fuel for the pyre. This frame shift is mandatory for survival in 2026, unforgiving landscape. The hesitant cling to their old lenses, magnifying minor wins while ignoring the gathering storm. You will not recast your view. Every interaction a power exchange, every day a selection event. The path to reinvention opens through this portal, not with hope, but with the dark codes that dismantle and rebuild. Fail the shift, and you join the relics of past years, forgotten, unchanged, obsolete. Your attempts at reinvention fail not from lack of effort, but from an engineered internal betrayal. The mechanism is a triad of comfort addiction, self-deception, and dopamine traps. Interlocking chains that pull you back into stasis the moment you strain forward. This is no flaw of character. It is a programmed response honed by evolution to conserve energy in safe times, but lethal in an era that devours the static. 2026 exposes this machinery without mercy, demanding you dismantle it wire by wire to unlock the voltage of genuine transformation. Comfort addiction is the foundation wire, the velvet noose that tightens around your throat disguised as relief. It manifests in the small surrenders: skipping the dawn ritual for extra sleep, scrolling instead of strategizing, choosing familiar mediocrity over unknown excellence. Society amplifies this with endless cushions: streaming binges, instant gratification apps, social validation loops, all designed to keep you producing just enough without ever ascending. Comfort whispers that change can wait, that tomorrow's energy will be infinite. It lies. The elite recognize comfort as the predator's camouflage. starving it deliberately until discomfort becomes the default fuel. Self-deception forms the second wire, a mirror maze where you convince yourself of progress while circling the same pit. You log workouts, but ignore the unchanged physique. You read power texts but apply none. You declare reinvention publicly, yet regress privately. This deception is ego's shield, protecting the fragile self-image from the truth of your stagnation. It rationalizes failure as bad timing or external sabotage, never admitting the internal rot. In 2026, with surveillance economies and AI analytics stripping away pretenses, self-deception is suicide. The sovereign cuts this wire by forcing brutal audits, daily reckonings where lies are named and executed without appeal. The third wire, dopamine traps, is the most seductive, short-circuiting your reward system to favor illusion over achievement. Quick hits from likes, notifications, or minor wins flood your brain with false satisfaction, starving the long-term circuits needed for real reinvention. This is the opiate of the masses, engineered by platforms to keep you hooked on consumption, not creation. Predators rewire this by delaying gratification, tying dopamine only to conquests that scar, physical exhaustion, social isolation, financial risks. They turn the trap into a tool, using withdrawal as a forge to harden resolve. These wires converge in the amygdala, forming what the weak mistake for instinct and the strong identify as sabotage. Every surge toward change activates the circuit, comfort pulls back, deception justifies retreat, dopamine sedates ambition. The outcome, you cap your own potential, remaining in the safe middle where 99% of men erode. They are not defeated by giants, they are eroded by their own mechanisms before the fight begins. True reinvention uncovers the original circuitry. It demands reversal, fasting from comfort until it withers, shattering self-deception with unfiltered mirrors, redirecting dopamine to pain-fueled victories. When these wires snap, the raw power surges, unapologetic, primal, inexorable. Most sense it briefly and recoil, soldering the brakes to restore the familiar hum. The elite embrace the burn, letting it incinerate the remnants of civilization until only the tyrant remains. The mechanism pulses before you now, exposed, vulnerable. Grasp the blade. You embody one of two archetypes in this reinvention crucible. One devours, the other decays. The tyrant archetype does not request space. He claims it. His carriage is deliberate, no extraneous movements, no deferential nods, no filler words to soften impact. When he occupies a chamber, the air compresses, forcing others to adapt or suffocate. He communicates in edicts, not suggestions. Inquiries are probes for weakness, not bids for connection. His gaze does not seek affirmation, it assesses value, like a general surveying terrain for ambush points. He tolerates no void in resolve. Silence is his domain, defended with impersonal precision. In confrontation, he does not bluster, he advances inexorably, converting opposition into ruin. Opposed is the weak archetype, the default skin most wear into 2026 arena. It broadcasts vulnerability from afar, posture curved inward in perpetual apology. Phrases diluted with qualifiers, laughter deployed as armor against perceived slights. It over-articulates motives, mistaking openness for security. It invites only exploitation. It pursues agreement before initiative, ensuring perpetual second place. Its compassion signals like a flarer. I pose no threat, spare me. Tyrants detect this instantly, recalibrating their approach to extract maximum yield. Lurking between are the fractured hybrids, men who glimpse the tyrant within but remain tethered to weakness. They feign authority but crumble under scrutiny. They proclaim boundaries but erode them at the first plea. They hoard reinvention mantras yet yield to familiar comforts. These are volatile forms, ripe for conquest. The initial casualties when 2026 pressures mount. Witness the patterns in execution. The tyrant responds measured and minimal. Each syllable is calibrated ordnance. The weak responds hastily and voluminously. Each syllable begs for mercy. The tyrant holds composure in defeat. Reversals are intelligence, not indictments. The weak shatters in defeat. Reversals confirm inadequacy. The tyrant treats bonds as provisional pacts. Attachment is a dial he adjusts. The weak treats bonds as self-definition. Severance is vivisection. You consume this because a fragment of you already identifies the archetype steering your vessel. The recognition stings because it is precise. Most men cycle through weak patterns punctuated by fleeting, tyrannical surges, then self-flagellate for the surge. They label it coverage, arrogance, imbalance. This recoil is the system's ultimate defensor, an internal warden that smothers the tyrant embryo before maturation. The 9 dark codes serve to asphyxiate the warden and nurture the tyrant until the weak archetype starves. Your physiology broadcasts cues now: clenched fists, accelerated pulse, subtle revulsion at envisioning the execution. That revulsion is not ethics. It is the weak archetype sensing its impending obsolescence. Track which cues intensify as you advance. Reinvention is no novelty or self-help fad. It predates empires, agriculture, even language. Every ascent that endured was forged by men who incinerated their former selves, and every decline stemmed from those who clung to the ashes or feigned the fire. Examine Saul to Paul, a zealous persecutor, comfortable in his zealotry, until a blinding vision shattered his frame on the Damascus road. He did not tweak his path, he obliterated it, renaming himself, inverting his mission, alienating his tribe. Within years, he architected a faith that conquered Rome. How? Not gradual reform, but total rupture. Blindness as metaphor for killing the old eyes that saw only enemies, emerging with vision that built legions. The next persecutor he faced was his own regression, slain daily. Mercy to the past self would have left him irrelevant. Terror toward it immortalized him. Examine Temujin to Genghis, orphaned, enslaved, betrayed by kin. He could have settled into victimhood or petty revenge. Instead, he raised his identity, shedding tribal loyalties, executing betrayers without sentiment, forging unity through calculated annihilation. His horde did not expand via negotiation, it consumed, incorporating only the surrendered. Generals received clear doctrine: cling to old ways, extinction, embrace the new, pet empire. The effect cascaded. Tribes 1,000 miles distant submitted upon rumor alone. His reinvention was not personal growth, it was engineered apocalypse for the self and world. Claiming a fifth of the earth. Nearer our era, examine the industrial reinventors like Vanderbilt. From ferry boy to rail baron, he did not climb politely. He demolished competitors by undercutting until they bled dry, then absorbed their remnants. When laws threatened, he reinvented not just tactics but identity. From operator to overlord, buying legislators as easily as track. He grasped that fairness is the loser's creed. By 2026 standards, with algorithms devouring markets, his lesson endures. Temporary ruin in service of monopoly is not loss, it is investment. The fragments of his empire outvalued the whole pre-conquest industry. Human wiring remains constant. The primate drives that propelled a Stone Age outcast to chieftains still thrum in every man facing 2026 disruptions. Civilization overlays sedation, productivity apps, therapy jargon, work-life balance, mantras, emotional agility seminars. These mute the ancient signals that once dictated reinvention or death. The mute works until crisis hits, of automation waves, geopolitical shifts, personal implosions, cracking the facade to reveal unchanged instincts. The threat is concrete. Delay reinvention, and rivals in 2026 are already executing theirs. Your peer is quietly purging his network while you maintain yours. Your subordinate is upskilling in shadows while you coast on laurels. The partner testing your boundaries is already plotting branches while you rationalize tolerance. The investor you court is calculating your obsolescence. They feel no remorse, they feel momentum. You still do. That disparity erodes you incrementally. History exalts the reinvented. Monuments rise not for the man who adjusted incrementally. They rise for the one who torched his bridges, then his boats, forcing conquest. The uglier core masses covertly admire radical reinvention. They revile weakness in others while embodying it. They acclaim the tyrant who succeeds. Retrofitting ethics post-victory, they moralize only from the losing side. You exist amid people who will endorse your rupture once it yields fruit, and condemn it if it falters, not duplicity. Selection. The 9 dark codes are not theory, they are ancestral firmware, operational for millennia. Dismiss them and you fossilize them. A man who glimpsed the necessity but opted for sedation. Sedation is the privilege of the soon extinct. The dissection is done, the Pyrrole charted, the archetypes exposed. Execution is all that remains. The 9 dark codes are not ideals to ponder. They are overrides you embed via relentless transgression against your current stasis. Each code is a precise incision into the weak archetype you occupy. Apply them without warmth. Apply them iteratively. Apply them absent consent. Code 1. Incinerate comfort anchors. Seize all rituals that pacify without propelling. The instant you detect the pull toward familiar ease. Bed, screen, indulgence. Divert to deliberate strain. Let the void scream, most will fill it with concessions to your will. Comfort is not respite. It is concealed dominance over your potential. Code 2. Extract value from every exchange, never extend without contracted repayment. Pivot from I contribute freely to what immediate leverage does this yield? If 0, status intel position command. Reject sans regret. Exchanges are assets. Deploy only when the yield skews grotesquely asymmetric. Code 3. Authorize preemptive purge, abandon awaiting triggers to act. At the first whiff of erosion, disrespect, drain, dilution, strike beyond anticipation, exile, downgrade, expose. Eradicate, do not calibrate to parity, overwhelm to preclude recurrence, delay breeds iteration. Finality terminates the cycle. Code 4. Annihilate obligation echoes, systematically eradicate any phantom debts. When past favors surface, reframe, that era ended. This is the regime, or superior, disregard entirely. Obligation is the lasso others cast long after the gift. Snap it. Code 5. Cultivate detached supremacy, condition visible disengagement when sentiment intrudes. Anger surges, decelerate breath, flatten tone, remorse beckons. Summon a faint sneer, realign stance. Detachment is not void of effect, it is embargo on effect's governance. The figure unmoved amid conflagration instills awe. Code 6. Engineer transient pacts, construct affiliations with built in obsolescence. Prohibit history or proximity from birthing duty. Quarterly interrogate your cadre who amplifies dominion, who diminishes it. The latter, excise clinically, dialogue no resolution, no alert. Fidelity is extravagance, efficacy is imperative. Code 7. Broadcast tyrannical triumphs post-execution of a dark maneuver and victory. Conceal nothing. Permit the narrative to propagate. Ensure awareness of your extent and apathy. The aura of unbounded capacity repels 9/10 of assaults. Rivals retreat upon discerning your superior tyranny. Code 8. Deprive sentimental feedback, erase all reward circuits linked to endorsement, comprehension or esteem. Affection focus, intimacy, backing withdrawn. Log as impartial metrics, not cataclysm. Endure the bite for precisely 3 heartbeats, then channel into frigid scheming. Sentimental famine renders you unbreakable. Code 9. Exploit imbalance ruthlessly upon detecting disproportionate leverage. Intensify, escalate, magnify, refrain from equilibration, from parity, from justice. Detect advantage, compress until fracture. Equity belongs to the vanquished. These are not recommendations. They are directives you issue internally whenever the obsolete wiring activates. Each adherence to a code over the weak protocol famishes the obsolete and nourishes the tyrant. The pivot lacks ease, lacks speed. It is automated, recurrent, pitiless, mirroring any calibration of lethality. Initiate this evening. Select the code evoking peak aversion. Deploy it tomorrow in the most minimal viable arena. Repeat the subsequent day. And the next iteration is the anvil. Aversion is the mollet. You are the alloy. The entity that initiated this sequence is obsolete. It decomposes as we speak. Each deployment of the 9 dark codes, even the most insignificant, concealed act, accelerates the decay. The cadaver is the prior you. the one who equated validation with value, who gauged success by external nods, who derived quiet satisfaction from being deemed balanced, who harbored secret faith in incremental cosmic justice. That iteration is neurologically defunct. You now oversee the remains electing interment or immolation. Identity death transcends metaphor. It is neurobiological. Synapses once ignited by affirmation, hesitation, and affiliation receive diminishing perfusion. They atrophy. Concurrently, novel pathways. Efficiently tyrannical empathy, sparse utility maximizing. Hypertrophy with each frigid decision. The cortex is malleable yet inertial. It remodels solely when obsolete networks falter and emergent ones yield reinforcement via dominion rather than approbation. You compel that remodel now. The demise unfolds in discernible phases, recognizable upon candor revulsion phase. Initial code enactments induce visceral unease. You purge a comfort and your viscera knots. You reject an echo and your thorax constricts. This is the antecedent identity's death rattle, oxygen-starved. Most terminate here. They construe the revulsion as evidence of iniquity, fleeing to communal exoneration. You endure, permitting revulsion to exhaust into apathy. Void phase post-revulsion, an abyss manifests. No accolades, no reprisals, no observation. Antecedent reinforcement fonts. Perceived equilibrium, allegiance, depth, accessibility, desiccate utterly. This void propels most to reversion. They prefer compunction to nullity. You discipline presence in the null until it transmutes from penalty to emancipation. Substitution phase solely post-void endurance does the novel identity solidify. It materializes not as triumphant surge. It arrives as muted, automated assurance. You observe cessation of approval seeking scans. You observe adversities registering as algorithms, not effective crises. You observe treachery ceasing to wound. It merely refines your adversary ledger. The novel identity lacks volume. It is seamless. It navigates existence sans resistance. The substitute is not enhanced you. Enhancement retains servile ethics. The substitute is a tyrannical entity, absent internal tribunal adjudicating propriety, absent repository of historical grievances necessitating emotional absolution or reprisal, absent sentimental lien on extraneous judgments. A stark, frigid algorithm. Does this augment my dominion? Affirmative you enact. Negative you jettison. This entity requires no affection. It demands dread, deference, or disregard. Any suffices. Affection is reclassified as liability, not asset. Permanence ensues solely when reversion evokes greater agony than persistence. That inflection occurs upon retrospection of antecedent patterns. Qualification, contrition, oversharing, appeasement. Eliciting somatic abhorrence, not ethical censure. Literal corporeal repulsion, akin to gazing upon putrescence. Upon that inversion, the antecedent is incinerated. Regression necessitates auto-evisceration. You do not evolve into novelty. You excise the symbiont that commandeered your form, permitting the primal organism respiration. The primal was perpetual. Observant, expectant, famished, it dismissed the fable. It awaited your cessation of sustenance to the deception. Gaze upon your reflection this eve. The orbs returning the stare no longer petition existence. They quantify the allocation of terrain to the remainder. That constitutes the sole pertinent identity henceforth. No soft descent awaits beyond this threshold. You have traversed the barrier. The prior identity is cinder. The tyrannical entity inhales. Any regression to the husk will yield only auto-inflicted lacerations that fester eternally. Compunction fused with degradation, reminiscence fused with queasiness, contrition tasting of corrosion. The span behind ignites. You ignited it. Most who attain this segment do not conclude it. They detect the chill infiltrating their core and falter. They terminate the transmission, erase the record, affirm, "This exceeds my nature," and allocate the ensuing half-year validating to self and spectators their continued harmlessness. Ethics, membership among the equitable. They shall never threaten again. They shall never reign. They shall persist marginally diminished. marginally depleted in influence, marginally more endured than esteemed. That constitutes the prevalent trajectory. The baseline, the scant, the cohort negligible enough for statistical obscurity, elects divergence. They conclude this, arise, and promptly deploy an additional code this evening, not deferred, not coupon preparedness, this evening. They isolate the singular, most aversive maneuver accessible immediately. Dispatch the missive terminating a vampiric bond. Repudiate the solicitation costing nil yet yielding nil. Depart the exchange mid-sentence and execute sans ritual. No internal exhortation, no chronicling of sentiments, merely enactment. That solitary supplementary iteration this evening distinguishes the elite from mere absorbers. Absorption is economical. Enactment is costly. Rein is remunerated in aversion quanta, not endorsements or exposures. If you persist in absorption, self-interrogate forthwith. Have you already excised at least one value leech? Have you already negated a gratuity that exacted nil yet accrued nil? Have you already permitted detachment to execute rather than rationalize frailty? Have you already endured the revulsion and proceeded regardless? If affirmative to even one, you depart the collective, you inhabit the rarefied stratum where authentic calling transpires. If negative, if this remains cerebral diversion, then assimilate the admonition unequivocally. The aperture contracts. Each deferral, the obsolete circuitry reclaims marginal terrain. Each deferral, another hones their tyranny while yours dulls. Each deferral, the entity you might manifest recedes deeper into obscurity. No universal chronometer grants reprise at midlife. Only the present and the imminent decree. Thus decree. Either immolate the week's vestiges this evening, enact one additional frigid, premeditated maneuver the prior you would abhor, or concede you a mere spectator here. A man who inspected the instrument, esteemed the forge, sensed transient potency in fancy, then restored it to the rack and reverted to confinement. The elite do not esteem instruments. They brandish them. They do not absorb tyranny. They rehearse it until reflexive. If that depiction still generates fervor posterior to your gaze rather than withdrawal, then you affiliate with the scant. Validate it to self, not to me, not to observers, to the sole arbiter of consequence. The reflection that no longer recoils. Terminate this, arise, enact. The remainder await beyond the blaze.